Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by my company, in which we transform founders and CEOs into excellent physical shape. 90% of fitness solutions are not meant for individuals who are running both companies and personal lives. For that reason, our primary objective is to solely focus on highly adaptable exercise that you can do even while you're taking a phone call. This is the exact same approach that I personally leverage to lose over 70 pounds and successfully keep my results. Check out mindandbodymasteryfitness.com for more. Today, I get the absolute pleasure and the opportunity to speak with Castleigh Johnson, who is the founder of My Home Pathway. Castleigh, I would love to start with your background.
Hey, thanks for having me on the podcast. Thanks for the followers and listeners for being here. Again, my name is Cassie. I'm the founder. Background, I'm an immigrant, born in Jamaica, um, not Jamaica, Queens, Jamaica, the island. I immigrated here for high school, did high school in New Jersey, and then, did college at Penn State, um, academic scholarship, but I walked onto the soccer team because that's what we play in Jamaica. So did college soccer for a year, realized I was only going pro, and then left that NCAA practice rules. And then came out, worked, interned for a few years, worked in corporate, and went back, got my MBA at NYU. Then came into transition in financial services. Did financial services 2008 at the time during the last financial crisis in the New York Fed. So it's really saw some interesting projects there and really got me to understand banking and finance at a much more granular level. Worked at some of the other larger organizations, financial services organizations, Goldman, AIG, Bank of Montreal, Ernst& Young, and then started my own company. Started my first fintech called Trafigo, which is around risk transformation at the consumer level. But it really wasn't as sticky as we needed to be, and I transitioned that company into My Home Pathway. So again, working on building better risk profiles for consumers and really creating access to capital for them, as well as creating on a lender side or partner side access to revenue, so we can turn your high risk or rejected consumers into approval ready candidates, and so that creates a an incentive for those lenders or partners to work with us. So it creates revenue.
Mhm. Castleigh, you had the option of not having to start a company and continue with your job. What compelled you to begin the company?
I mean, financial services in almost every large institution is like the Titanic. So it's hard to change direction of a financial services company. Companies been operating 70s, 80, 90 years, with thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, depending on the organization. And for me, realizing that in financial services, there still wasn't equitable access to capital. So you can look at the results in terms of like home ownership for Black and Brown consumers have still lagged quite a bit, even with a lot of regulation, even with a lot of like really good efforts by nonprofits and financial services institutions. The numbers haven't moved. And so for me, it's like, all right, I can stick within those organizations and try to move the needle, but it's going to be moving like inch by inch. Or you can, jump out jump out of the plane, as they say, and like build a company while you're going down. And that's what I decided to do because I think for a lot of us, there's a ton of rationale and a ton of reasons why things are the same way. And so for me, I'm like, great. The outcomes haven't moved. A lot of people want to get them to move, but they're not really rocking the boat. So I can see if I can help to realign those incentives and outcomes that help consumers as well as regulators and banks.
Wow, so tell me more about that and how that works at My Home Pathway.
Yeah, so our platform is geared towards working with financial institutions, realtors, so anybody really stakeholder in the mortgage or real estate space for consumer real estate anyway, not commercial consumer real estate, that's looking to get into home ownership for, there's 5 to 7 million people every year that either get rejected or don't even apply for home ownership that are within striking distance. Obviously, now you have elevated interest rates, so the demand is a little bit lower. But we're still 5 to 6 million homes short in terms of consumer homes in the U.S. So there's needs to be some supply more supply built, especially affordable supply built to kind of address the needs of the consumer market in the U.S. But for now, it's like there's still a lot of folks that want that access, but aren't approval ready. They don't meet underwriting criteria for a lot of institutions, and nobody's really built a comprehensive tech solution that can help guide them there at scale. There's one on one counseling, but most people don't go to one on one counseling, and they're not actually effective to be able to scale to a million or 2, 3 million people that they can approve, get them approval ready. So that's where technology comes in. And that's where we're leveraging tech to be able to reach a million, 2, 3 million people, as well as to actually do the counseling through a recommendation engine. So if you think about, you need data to do one-on-one counseling. Data can be grabbed with API connections. Then that gap assesses the consumer. Here's where you are today, Mike, Steve, Susan, and here's where you need to go in the future. Here's your gap. Here's your roadmap, and here's how we give you the milestones to get you there. So it's all
So
leveraging tech.
so personalized per each individual.
Yes, it's personalized based on, because we all have different gaps, right? Or different
Right.
needs that help, that we need to work on. And so we're leveraging technology to be able to see kind of like, hey, where is your gap compared to someone else's gap? And what things that you need to do, steps you need to take to get there.
Now, for those who are within striking distance but choose not to apply, why don't you think they do so?
There's a lot of psychological issues within certain communities. So, for example, if me and you were friends or were relatives and you applied for a mortgage, and I don't even have to know all of your financial details, but say you got rejected, I am a whole lot less likely to even apply because we see ourselves as similar socioeconomic cohorts. So there's silent rejections in certain communities that are not necessarily consistent with others.
That's a perspective that you'll not hear very often, and I think that was actually pretty interesting. So, with that in mind, how do you approach that misconception or that kind of issue in which there are many individuals who don't apply because they don't think they're going to get it right? So with my home pathway, is there a way that you make it more, I would say, perceived as accessible?
Yeah, I mean, I think big part is messaging, right? So we have to message and bring awareness to what we just described, and to let people know that there is an opportunity, right? Bridging that gap, as you so nicely articulated in the title. In the title is that's our goal, is to show people that yes, you may have some challenges, but that's the why we exist. We exist to help you to address those challenges, and you're not necessarily a bad financial person. You just haven't been given the guidance. And so here's where our technology comes in and provides people that guidance and that roadmap to help them level up, right? To get them from here to here to here. So there's
Love
steps that
love
you have
it.
to take, and so that's what we're building through our tech.
Give me a specific insight that someone could use that would make them believe there's actually chance for them. Is because many don't have that knowledge that you probably have at your company. Is there a specific insight you can give that would make them understand? Yes, it's actually possible for you to get approval.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? So people are a lot of times rejected for credit score, for example. And I've used this example a lot of, I don't know how many times, countless times at this point. If you're paying rent today and you don't have rent reporting embedded into your credit score as a trade line, you're literally giving away 40 to 50 points on your credit score, right? So if I would say a 600 credit score, but I didn't embed rent reporting, am I truly a 600 credit score? Not really. Now I embed rent reporting, I'm a 640 or 650 credit score, and that was on my true risk from day one. I just didn't take the next step to embed rent reporting into my credit score. And right now, it's not a requirement from Congress, but at some point it may be. But that's still on the consumers and the renters to understand. So it's renters
Hmm.
that need to be able to take those steps. So that's something that we're pushing to let people understand, and then we're partnering with good rent reporting companies. So we're not just giving you generic advice; we give you the exact steps and who to actually work with to get there.
And what I think you're doing here is not just a nice to have. You're providing a necessary service to the market. And I love what you're doing. So now I want to shift the conversation to more about you, Castleigh. The first question I have for you is, what is one aspect about your life or about you that you wish more people knew about?
Oof. Um, I'm pretty open. Like I've been a CEO now for a few years, and I've done a ton of interviews, and just in general, speaking about my experience as a immigrant coming to this country, and understanding and learning personal finance. I used to be a bigger risk taker when I was younger, like skydive, rode bikes, you know, whitewater rafted. And as I get a little bit older, I'm like less of a risk taker. But I've experienced those things in the time frame that it was, built for. Uh, Father now, so I take a little bit less risk or more calculated risks, even though starting a company is a big risk. So I think just starting my company has replaced all the other fun, thrill-seeking risks that I would, and just been a lot more, intentional about the types of risks I do these days.
Mhm. Now, I'm a former athlete, and so are you. I took specific lessons from my basketball career in high school, and I brought that into my life now. Is there anything that you could bring from your former athletic career that you brought
Yeah,
into your life?
absolutely. Discipline. So to be a really good D1 athlete or any type of athletics, you have to have discipline around practice, around your skills, about developing your skills and pushing, striving to be the best at what you do, right? And whether that's locally, whether that's nationally, regionally, and you compare your skill sets to people that are better, right? So you look at a vision and say, hey, Warren Buffett did this or Kobe did this, so I'm going to put in the effort. And there's also Malcolm Gladwell has that book Tipping Point and a few other books that he talks about like you have to put in the 10,000 hours of practice to get really good at something. And I think a lot of times people don't truly appreciate that 10,000 hours, right? It's a commitment. And so I think from athletics, that's one of the things I've transitioned into running a company is the commitment and drive and dedication it takes to do something that, other people aren't. And so that's I think some of the parts of just like back to where I said that discipline is when it gets like tough and when it's not sexy. People look at founders sometimes and like, oh, it's a sexy thing. No, there's 14, 12, 15 hours sometimes of just like admin work or grudge works you have to do. That's not sexy. That's not going to get you on the front of Forbes magazine or something like that. And so you have to have that, drive and discipline and determination that most folks won't have. That is what's going to separate you from being able to launch something that's really good and successful.
Absolutely. Now, my last question that's more personal is regarding the why. And I think this is the reason why most founders are able to go through all that admin work, all the boring stuff, because they have that strong why that's tying them to their specific vision. So I get the opportunity to speak with a bunch of founders and CEOs across the world, and all of them are very driven, they're ready to execute. But what differs across them is their why. So, Castleigh, what is your why?
My why is equitable access to finance for everyone. And so people that look like me, people that don't look like me, people that were born here, people that were not born here. I think there's a lot of principles that we talk about when it comes to personal finance, just finance in general, around access to capital, but it hasn't necessarily been executed that way. And we see the results, right? And so my why is to actually create better access to building wealth to a lot of people. And again, that's one of those things where it sounds sexy and it sounds like it's financial inclusion, for example. Everybody says they want to do it, but if you actually get a look at the results, it hasn't happened. So that's what keeps me up, but it's also what drives me to make sure that that thing does happen.
Talk about it is one thing, bringing it to life is a completely different story. Right?
Correct.
Yeah. So now I'm going to move the conversation to more about fitness and health, and I want to ask you, Castley, what do you believe is the primary challenge to make a fitness transformation?
I mean, at least for a lot of CEOs, it's time, right? Because you're putting
Yeah.
in sometimes, 12, 13, 14 hours, sometimes even 10 hours is a light day. Um, you know, Finding that time where you're not mentally and physically drained from a long day or in a bunch of meetings and running around that you have to keep, because a lot of times fitness is a disciplined approach and it requires some healthy routines. Like I know I'm going to work out from 6 to 6:30 or 6 to 7 o'clock, you know, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. So a lot of times I think it's time and mental fatigue that really impacts a lot of founders and CEOs when it comes to their fitness journey. I know for myself, 4 years ago, I was way out of shape. I'm just beaten down by the startup life to a certain extent. And now I've had to adjust. So I intermittent fast, for example, is a part of my discipline approach where I know I don't have the capacity to work out 4 times a week like I used to, plus play basketball or soccer. So I have to adjust my diet and do more intermittent workouts. So a 20-minute workout here, a 20-minute workout there. I don't have 2 hours to dedicate to the gym 4 days a week, right? So it's just still finding things and adjusting. Like it's intake versus outtake, right? It's simple
Correct.
math to a certain extent. X, Y, and Z
Correct.
gives you calories. You burn those calories, or you do not burn those calories, and what you don't burn becomes fat. And so it's math.
Yeah.
If you actually just
Exactly.
understand that.
And that's what people miss a lot of the time. But I believe there's really primarily there's a disservice to people, but also entrepreneurs specifically when it comes to fitness. Because guess what? The commute alone to the gym is already a turn off for most that even start. They don't even start because there's a commute to the gym, a commute to the studio, commute to the gym, right? So they don't even start because of that. But let's talk about even if they begin that fitness journey when it comes to committing to gym workouts. Even with that situation at hand, how doable is that long term? From my point of view, it's almost like being tasked with the objective of making $300,000 and you choose Starbucks job over entrepreneurship because you're losing from the start. Focusing on an approach that is location dependent, like going to drive to a studio, going to drive to a gym, with a person who's looking to build something, who's constantly traveling, fulfilling the requirements to fulfill the requirements, you have to drive to a gym into a location. For that to occur, I think it's very much not doable long term if we think about it, right? So, from my point of view, there's a massive disservice that there's a misunderstanding of what is really required to transform your health. And you kind of mentioned it earlier. It's the calories in and calories out. But the avenue by which you take, in my opinion, is the most important. From my point of view, I think location independent movement is the best way to go when it comes to specifically entrepreneurs because if you could fulfill the requirements to make your fitness transformation while taking a phone call or you're literally while you're literally handling a business problem, I think there's a very low barrier to entry when it comes to fitness. So I think the avenue by which you take is a primary way that I would say people need to consider, especially when it comes to fitness. It's fitness for entrepreneurs. So there's really two pieces of advice that I would give. Again, it's number one, it's a location independent exercise because if you can again solve your business problems and you can fulfill the requirements to make your fitness transformation at the exact same time, I don't think there's much barrier to making your helping you make your fitness transformation. And number two is the strategy that you undertake. Cassie, before I reveal the second component, would you ever invest in a business strategy that you didn't understand?
No, that would be throwing money away.
Exactly. So you don't want to be throwing your time away. Your time is money. So you have to understand the strategy you're undertaking. Because if you're following a approach that just been given to you and you don't understand it and you don't see results, then how can you expect yourself to properly see success if you don't understand the strategy itself and why it would give you results? So, like you said, understand the carries in and carries out situation. That is a primary driver of making your fitness transformation. Once you understand that, combine that with the right avenue, I think that you'll have an inevitable fitness transformation. So, I think with that, we will conclude the fitness transformation, and then we'll move on to your next year plans with regard to my home pathway.
It's pretty simple. Take over the world. Um, I mean, for next year, really, it's around continuing to grow our team, grow our partnerships, and then grow the users that are on our platform, and continue to improve our platform itself to make it more effective, to enhance more risk profiles at a faster rate. Because again, I think there's a ton of people that are out there that need our help, and the good part, good from a business perspective, As people more mature, folks graduate from college, folks starting to look into home ownership, the market will never really die because people still want places to live and still want to. And it's the greatest wealth driver for middle class Americans is their home equity. But there's still so many folks that need guidance and that need help in a way that expedites, them to get to that next level from a risk profile perspective. So, we'll have quite a few folks that we can get to and just continue to refine the platform as well. That's really our 2020. There's some fundraising in there. There's some partnership development in there. We just signed a major agreement with a company that can't name yet. That is one of the significant players in the mortgage market that controls about half of the mortgage applications in the country.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we signed it. We got some things that we got to implement before we can publicly announce who that partner is. But for folks that are in the mortgage business, they control 50% of the mortgage market. So we'll be a part of their platform relatively shortly. So that's a major win for us for 2025. Our implementation will probably take 4 to 5 months. So by Q4 of this year, we'll be rolling that out and we'll be super pumped for what 2026 looks like partnering with them.
Love it. Where do people learn more about you, Castleigh, and more about My Home Pathway?
Website and LinkedIn. So website is www.myhomepathway.com. And on LinkedIn, you can find me, Castleigh Johnson, and learn a little bit more about us. If you're wanting to partner with us as a bank, realtor, financial institution, you can reach out to us. And then as consumers, go on our website. If you know your friends, family, you can refer them to us that are interested in home ownership but not quite there yet. We'll be more than willing to help them to get there. So super excited for our team and our platform and for folks that we can help to get them into home ownership.
Excellent. Check out the LinkedIn comment section down below to see Castleigh's LinkedIn and also the website. Castleigh, it was such a pleasure having you on the podcast today. Thank you for joining me.
Appreciate you. Thank you very much for having us.
Absolutely. This was Aryan Mohindra and Castleigh Johnson. Thank you for listening.